checkmates. Having a winning position means nothing if you don't know how to deliver the checkmate. So we're gonna go over every important checkmate pattern. Queen and king checkmate. If your IQ isn't below 50, you probably already know how to deliver this checkmate, but are you doing it the right way? We have to push their king to the edge of the board. The fastest way to do this is to keep putting your queen on one of these squares, so you're constantly making an L shape towards their king. Eventually you'll trap their king. Now you bring your king and finish them. 2 rooks checkmate. The easiest checkmate out there. Position your rooks like this, and keep shrinking the king's available squares. If your rooks get attacked, just move to the other side of the board, where you can deliver the checkmate. Rook and king checkmate. Our goal here is to push their king to the edge of the board. To do that, get both kings on the same file, and now check them with your rook. This forces them to move one rank down. You keep repeating this until you checkmate them. Now that the basics are out of the way, let's go over a few things that might help you win more games. Take this position for instance. It's a dead draw, but notice how black's king is trapped behind these pawns. You can always try to trick your opponent, and deliver a backrank checkmate. This next checkmate I'm about to show you is the coolest way to finish a chess game. On my previous move, I played knight to e5 and set up a trap, but my opponent didn't see through it. Now I'll play queen to c4 check. Black can't move their king towards the rook, because then I can checkmate them. So they play king h8, but now I can deliver an even better checkmate. Knight to f7, knight to h6, a double check from both of my pieces, and finally, queen to g8. Once black captures with their rook, we have the smothered mate. Also, don't forget how powerful 2 bishops are. Their king is trapped by their own pieces. My light-squared bishop controls all the light squares. If only the b2 pawn didn't exist, we could play bishop to a3 for checkmate. But wait, we actually can. We sacrifice our rook, forcing white to capture, and now we can play bishop to a3 checkmate. This is the Boden's mate, and that's every checkmate pattern you'll need. King and pawn endgames. These are the most common endgames, so it's important you understand them well. Let's start with opposition. This is when the 2 kings face off, with just one square between them. The side without the move has the advantage, because they force their opponent to step aside. In this example it's black's turn to move, which means white has the advantage. So in this position, in order to draw, white can play only one move with his king. I hope you found it yourself. It's king e2. Although, it's not so easy sometimes, this move would be a huge blunder because it allows black to grab opposition, and promote his pawn. So the only move that you can play is this, because now you're the one who grabs opposition, and it's a draw. Next thing you need to know are key squares. If your king steps on one of the key squares, you can guarantee pawn promotion. For the rook pawns, these are the key squares. In other words, for this pawn to promote, the white king has to reach one of these squares before the black king does. For pawns on the second rank, these are the key squares. And so on. Once you reach the 5th rank, you have 6 key squares. It's the same with the 6th rank. And the 7th rank, so that brings us to this example. Our pawn is on the 4th rank, which means these are the key squares. There's no way for us to reach them because black can use opposition to his advantage. But in this other example, we're the ones that grab the opposition. This allows us to reach the key squares, which means our pawn is going to promote. You should also know about the rule of the square. If you're not sure if you can push your pawn to promotion without it getting captured, just imagine a square like this. If the enemy king isn't inside of it, he won't catch up in time. Bishop endgames. Opposite-colored bishops are almost always a draw. Even if you're up 2 pawns, with perfect play this is still a draw, but having same-colored bishops changes everything. Now you can actually trade these bishops and easily win this endgame. In the same-colored bishop endgames, you shouldn't put your pawns on the same color as your bishop, despite the equal material here. White is winning, because white position their pawns on the opposite color of the bishops, so black can't even attack the pawns. So now if you ever find yourself in a similar position, and you're not sure which one of these 2 pawns to move forward, always move the pawn that is on the same color as your bishop, because now black's bishop has no way of attacking your pawns, but you can easily come in and attack his pawns. Another thing you should know is that it's impossible to promote a rook pawn if the color of the bishop doesn't match the color of the square in the corner. So this is going to be another draw. Knight endgames. Knights are tricky to play against because you always gotta watch out for forks, but I'm gonna teach you a little trick that will help you to calculate faster. So imagine you're low on time, and you just got checked by a knight. If you move one square under their knight, they can check you again from 2 squares. If you move up, and attack their knight diagonally, they can once again check you from 2 different squares. So here's what I want you to remember, as long as you move exactly 1 square under their knight, they have no way of checking you. They need to make 2 moves before they can check you again. Also, if you move so that there is one square diagonally between you and the knight, they can't check you. They need to make 3 moves until they can check you again. Keep this in mind when you're low on time, it'll help you not get forked. Rook endgames. We are gonna start with something that's really easy to remember. Black is just 1 square away from promotion, but this is really easy to draw for white. First of all, make sure not to move your king at all. If you go rushing towards the pawn, black plays this tricky move, you grab the free pawn, and now you lose your rook. Literally the only thing you have to do is move your rook up and down. When their king reaches their pawn, you start checking them infinitely. If they come up and attack you, you move out of the way. Eventually they realize this is a draw. You're often gonna play endgames where you're up a passed pawn. The easiest way to convert this into a win is to place your rook behind the pawn. You're threatening to promote the pawn. This forces your opponent to constantly block the pawn's movement, making their rook passive. With this setup you can bring your king closer, or create threats elsewhere, and you're in a winning position. This is the Philidor position. It's one of the most important endgames to understand. Even though white is up a pawn, black can draw this. I'm gonna explain this in simple terms. You need to put your rook on the 6th rank, before your opponent's pawn reaches the 6th rank. To help you understand why, I'm gonna play a bad move with black, so you can see what happens. Black didn't block the 6th rank, so the white king enters. Black tries to check white's king from behind, but it's already too late. White is going to promote the pawn, but now let's see what happens when black plays properly. Rook c6, blocking white's king from entering the 6th rank. White can't do much besides pushing the pawn, and now white's king has no squares to hide in front of. Black's rook goes to the other side of the board. With the intention of constantly checking white's king, white accomplishes nothing if he tries checking black. Black just has to keep checking the king, and this is a draw. So just remember this, your king has to obviously protect the square of promotion, and your rook has to block the 6th rank. Queen endgames. So you're in a rush to promote a pawn before your opponent does, and you reach this position. You got a queen, but your opponent is just 1 square away from promotion. So how to win this? Well, let's start with a check first. Notice how black didn't move his king under the pawn. We're gonna threaten to win the pawn. This forces him back, and now this check forces him to go onto the pawn, because otherwise we're gonna take it. So this is gonna be our strategy. Each time we force black's king under the pawn, we're gonna come 1 square closer with our king, because we need our king to checkmate black. Black moves the king, and now we repeat the whole process again, until their king is under the pawn. Once again we step another square closer with our king, and you keep repeating this, until you can checkmate them. Although this doesn't work if their pawn is on one of these squares, because you never get the opportunity to come closer with your king. Check this example, we push them under the pawn, but if we move our king now it's a stalemate, because their king has no moves. There is an exception though. If our king is close by, we let them promote their pawn, but they have no way of stopping the checkmate. I hope this video made you at least 1% better at endgames. Keep the momentum and watch this next.